So am I going to blame that person for pointing it out? No. When the left criticizes the far-right extremism, they're right to do so. Far-right extremism is a bad thing. However, the far left is then radicalized by it. The only thing I think we're missing in this debate is the mainstream left not calling out the far left extremism, only rallying around the far right extremism. Even when Trump himself denounces white supremacy, they don't care. They don't care. And this is why I'm saying the Civil War is coming into focus. Let's move on. This story was published in November. What are the chances that America's disunion turns into a civil war? I don't actually care for the most part about the analysis of the story. I just want to highlight that they did a poll and said 1/3 of all Americans think a conflict could break out within the next 5 years, with 10% thinking it's very likely to happen. Back in March, State Department official Keith Mines told Foreign Policy magazine, "It's like 1859. Everyone is mad about something and everyone has a gun." He rated the odds of a second American Civil War breaking out in the next 10 to 15 years at 60%. That's the important takeaway. Now let's take a look at this guy Connor Betts briefly. He was a leftist. He posted about guns. He actually had some interactions with the Socialist Rifle Association about the effectiveness of bump stocks, and referred to it as potential advice. I think that's a little hyperbolic. I can't tell you what it was. They were having a conversation about gun rights. This is a guy who was very leftist, using his pronouns, and we don't know what his motivation was or why he was killing the people he killed. For all we know, it could have been him targeting the 1%, and his sister was an accident. We don't know. Well, let's move on. I want to get more to the crux of the Civil War stuff outside of this. The Ohio gunman called himself a pro-Satanist leftist who supported Elizabeth Warren. This article is an example of what's going to happen and why it's dangerous. I made a video saying he was a confirmed leftist. His motive was unclear, and I try to stress in the video, we don't know why he did what he did, as I'll try to do in this video. It doesn't mean that he was driven by ideology. But it does mean you will see articles emerge where people will say he supported Elizabeth Warren, he was a leftist, motivation be damned. They will simply say, hey, this is who this guy was, and this will make people, look, there's going to be people on the right, militia-style people, or just conservatives saying, I get it, we don't know his motive, it's time to arm anyway. Now, interestingly, this guy actually did tweet about arming because of civil conflict. So I can get a little bit into his motive and talk about this, and I'll show you this right here. I want to come back to this tweet later. Jack Posobiec tweeted, "This is awkward. We can see this man, Mehdi Hassan, quote, after El Paso, we can no longer ignore Trump's role in inspiring mass shootings. He said, my latest on the tragic carnage this weekend and how the shooter's white nationalism talk of invasion and approval of send them back fits a pattern. Please read and share." Jack then tweeted this from the Twitter account of the Dayton shooter. Yet Mehdi Hassan tweeted in March. He said, quote, "Yes, let's defeat or impeach Trump, but what if he doesn't leave the White House? My latest piece for The Intercept on all too plausible and deeply dangerous and maybe violent scenario come 2020. To which the Clayton guy said, arm, train, prepare." At this point, we can see the danger of the rhetoric. By saying Trump won't leave the White House, by saying Trump wants to kill migrants in their concentration camps, this guy was tweeting, arm, train, prepare. Is it possible that the only reason he was armed and had guns and was tweeting with the Socialist Rifle Association is because the rhetoric drove him to that point? Now, we don't know why he killed people in Dayton, but perhaps we can say there's at least some circumstantial evidence that the only reason he had guns in the first place was because of the rhetoric of people saying Trump, is a far-right extremist. Trump won't leave the White House. The rhetoric escalates. I don't care what your opinion is on Trump for this video. The point is the perception that the right is going to say this dude is arming. He's tweeting about arming. Why wouldn't someone prepare? The left has already been preparing. They've been talking about the John Brown Gun Club. We've seen what's happened in Tacoma. Both sides are gearing up for a major conflict. I would fail at my job if I didn't go back to the El Paso shooter and mention the criticism and articles from the New York Times, for instance. They say, analysis, El Paso shooting suspects manifesto echoes Trump language. And that's what we saw in the tweet from the guy Mehdi, where he talks about invasions, he talks about, open borders and things like this. But that's not necessarily Trump rhetoric. That's just general rhetoric. And I'll stress this right now. Every conservative, including Trump, has condemned this guy. He went nuts. I mean, it's insane and extremely deadly and lethal. Even the problem now is because Antifa is particularly ineffective, they're doing a bunch of small, I'll look at them like, low blow haymakers, fast punches that do damage here and there, but aren't big enough to get people to stand up on their seats. Not like a blinding uppercut that sends a guy flying back 20 feet. What we see with the far right is that it's rare relative to the amount of violence on the left, but extremely lethal. So I do think it is warranted to say we need resources to stop that from the federal government. I'm wary of expanding executive authority, but hey, I'll agree with the left all day and night. Yes, let's stop these people. They're insane. At the same time, we need the left to condemn Antifa more. Shaun King praised what happened in Tacoma. We cannot accept this. You need to stop it before it gets to that point. But let's move on. Copycat is arrested after making threats to shoot up a Florida Walmart because he was intrigued by El Paso, Ohio massacres. Gibstonson Walmart in Florida received a call threatening to shoot up the store. Wayne Lee Paget, the son of an employee, identified as the threatening caller. Hillsborough County Sheriff said Paget was intrigued by recent shootings. He was arrested and faces felony charges of a false report and making a threat. Now, they call him a copycat. Again, whatever this guy's motives was, I have no idea, but expect more of this. There is something I talked about the other day called a standalone complex, where the guy in Dayton and the guy in El Paso are completely unrelated, but initially it seemed to be, it was possibly a concerted effort. A standalone complex is when unrelated incidents, unrelated people do things in a similar way that gives rise to the impression of a concerted effort. It turns out they actually had diametrically opposed ideologies, but that's the point. It seemed to be that way. This guy is a copycat. When this guy in El Paso does this, he cited Christchurch. He talked about, my understanding is he talked about New Zealand. Don't be surprised when more people hear about this and act in a similar way, and it's ideologically driven. This is another example of the dangers of far-right extremism. And look, I don't know what the solution is. I really don't. I can tell you, blaming the mainstream left as, fascists, blaming the mainstream right as fascists isn't solving the problem. If Trump condemns this, if conservatives condemn this, good. It's the best we can do. Now, left, please condemn your extremists. I'll be waiting. Many have. I'm not, don't get me wrong, but I just don't see it. And the problem is, when this crazy guy echoes a lot of similar talking points we've heard from, the far right, and it overlaps with what Trump is saying, they blame Trump for it. They blame Trump to a rather absurd degree, to where we see this guy, Mehdi Hassan, blame Trump, but literally his blaming of Trump is what at least provides some evidence that the guy in Dayton armed because of it. In this tweet, I want to talk about the truly scary thing that we're seeing now. The propensity of fake news to drive the narrative and make people insane, and I don't see any way of stopping it. This woman, Imani Gandhi, is an analyst for Rewire News, tweeted, "Shooter. I was inspired by Trump. Media. What could have caused this? Shooter. Look at this cool photo of the word Trump spelled out in firearms. Media. He probably played too much Fortnite. Shooter. It's like Trump said, Hispanics are invading us. Media. We may never know." Nearly 200,000 retweets. The problem? It's completely fake. The whole premise behind this tweet is completely fake, but extremely influential. For one, the media is absolutely blaming Trump and Trump's language. Fact check number 2: the photo of gun with Trump, the photo of Trump spelled out with firearms, is not from this shooter. That's fake news. That photo was from a long time ago. Media is not blaming Fortnite. The New York Times, the paper of record, is blaming Trump to an extent. The media, we may never know. This creates an image that the media can't be trusted. It's not like, I think the media, for the most part, can be trusted, but distrusted media, pushing fake influence, and allowing propaganda to spread. What are you going to do? This is somebody saying it's Trump's fault. Spreading fake news about Trump spelled out in firearms, again, going to radicalize people. It doesn't matter who is doing the radicalization, from a copycat who's agreeing with the message to people spreading fake news. Again, I'll say it for the millionth time, we've seen far-right extremists go nuts. We don't know the motive of the guy in Dayton. I don't think it's likely ideologically driven, but at least we can say there's some evidence to suggest he was armed because of it. And here comes the more, look, it's coming into focus, okay? Reza Aslan. He said, "After today, there is no longer any room for nuance. The president is a white nationalist terror leader. His supporters, all of them, are by definition white nationalist terror supporters. The MAGA hat is a KKK hood, and this evil racist scourge must be eradicated from society." Where do you think we go next? The professor from Princeton who said, when you use words like infestation, it's the exact same language of the president. Yeah, when you use words like concentration camp, it's the exact same language as Ocasio-Cortez. When Reza Aslan says they must be eradicated, they must be eradicated. Wow. I think we can see where this is going. It's not stopping. Reza Aslan, with his hundreds of thousands of followers, tweeting this out with no repercussion. Sean King praising a terrorist. No repercussion. I think we can see where it's going. So I was asked recently, how come I'm always ragging on the left? This is why. Show me the conservative cheering on any of this. I'll be waiting. I can show you the leftists who are cheering it on, who are blaming Trump and making the problem worse, even when the president condemns the violence, even when he calls it out. I don't think the president is perfect. I think that he's boorish, and I disagree with a lot of his policy. But to act like Trump is making this happen is absurd, especially when you see this New York Times story, which absolutely mentions the suspect wrote that his views predate Trump. Of course they do. Trump isn't the cause. Trump is a symptom. I think Trump may actually be slowing things down to an extent by making these people think it's not as bad or potentially. Actually, you know what? I think the best way to put this is how Will Chamberlain phrased it. I don't have the tweet pulled up, but Will said what's causing this is the fact that Trump has scorned these people. And now they feel that the little hope they had is gone. Will made the point, I think it was Will, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, that when Trump first got elected, the media was saying all of these things that got white nationalists actually hopeful until Trump came out and condemned them. And then they got angry and felt they had no recourse. Trump is a symptom, in my opinion, of a rise in this fear over immigration, these other issues. But let's move on, because I want to make sure I stress. And what I'm trying to say is, I would never put the blame on Trump for this. That makes no sense. It only makes things worse. If you can't honestly think every Trump supporter is a racist and contributing to this. Are there a small portion? Of course there are. There are a small portion of anti-Trump people who are psychotic, crazy people as well. The point is, the solution to this is not to blame Trump or to blame Nancy Pelosi. But what am I going to say about Reza Aslan, who's literally saying that Trump supporters should be eradicated? I don't know, man. I don't know. You want to tell me why I'm pointing the finger at the left and not Trump? Well, Trump's condemning it. I can't say that it's perfect. I can't say it's going to solve the problem. Reza Aslan's promoting it. What do you want me to say? Show me the conservative cheering this on. Let's move on. In this story, I want to make sure I stress, the FBI said on August 1st that they were wrong about the Garlic Festival shooters' white supremacy ideology. The reason I highlight this is that among the left, they're saying that the FBI is defending them because the FBI are white supremacists. There was a shooting. It was reported the shooter was a white supremacist. The FBI is saying that's not true. I highlight this to tie back to the idea of fake news. These people are going to push their ideology no matter what happens. They're going to claim it's true no matter what happens. Facts be damned. And then we can see that things will just continue to escalate. And this is actually from today, I believe, or at least maybe it was updated. The Washington Examiner said Trump must name and condemn the evil of white nationalism. And Donald Trump did. Trump said we must condemn white supremacy. What did Reza Aslan say? He said that Trump and his supporters must be eradicated from society, even though conservatives called for the condemnation of white nationalism and Trump condemned white supremacy. It doesn't matter. This is why I think the left is worrying me. Look, man, you get both sides to say stop enough, I'll be happy. Trump said it. Conservatives have called for it. Maybe there are some conservatives calling for it I'm not seeing, but from where I'm sitting, I see Sean King, Reza Aslan, and other high-profile leftists calling everybody Nazis, calling everybody fascists, and calling for more violence. Now, people made fun of Trump because he accidentally said Toledo. I'm just going to give you this update for the sake of giving you the update. Joe Biden also incorrectly stated the locations as well. And then we have this story where we go on to the final portion, just more of a news update. Trump has blamed mental illness, the internet, and computer games following El Paso and Dayton. You know, it's foolish to blame video games, but I will say this. I think it's better to have the problem be mental illness or social media than for it to be the people. Reza Aslan's rhetoric scares me. This woman from Imani Gandhi scares me. 200,000 retweets with fake news blaming the president. Reza Aslan blaming the president. And then I look over and I see conservatives and the president condemning it. The problem is coming into focus. You want to ask me why I'm really concerned about the rise of the far left? Well, they're identitarians. They share a similar but conflicted ideology with the guy in El Paso. They do. It's true. And it emboldens people like the guy in El Paso. I don't care if you want to accept it or not. It's true. Identitarianism, it takes many forms. There's left-wing identitarianism. They want identity-based policies. They want people to be recognized based on their identity. And you have a similar call from the white identitarians. They are forming their group based on their identity. It's a complicated thing to break down, but it all comes down to identity politics, to the extreme. I'll say it again. Identity politics can be a good thing, civil rights for one, but it can be an extreme thing. Identitarianism is the extreme end. And we can see it on the left. We can see Kirsten Gillibrand blaming white people. We can see the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee ousting its top staff for being white. And when you see these things, the equal and opposite reaction emerges on the white side. Call it left, call it right, I don't care. When the left blames white people, when Sarah Jong tweets against white people, you radicalize people. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It is wrong to blame people because of their race, and it is, period. And I think that statement should be clear. It will condemn the white identitarians and the anti-white identitarians, period. Unfortunately, while we aren't seeing, for the most part, anti-white identitarians engage in extreme violence, it's happened sometimes. We had the guy in Dallas. We had a guy in Brooklyn, which was just outside of my house. But you're seeing it on the left, and I think it's fair to point out many people on the right say, if it comes to civil war, the right will win because they have all the guns. But I will also stress, don't be surprised then when it's the far right extremists who are the ones who are coming out with the guns and being better, I shouldn't say better, but more effective, more lethal. I don't want to say better because I don't want to imply any positivity. No, it's nightmarish. It's dystopian. But of course the left is ineffective. The guy who showed up to Tacoma failed miserably and was killed and burned a car. That's a point made by the right when referencing the Civil War, right? The left is increasingly engaging in low-tier violence. If they were more effective with their weapons, this would be a terrible nightmare. But the right is better with guns. So when one of these people goes crazy and embraces identitarian ideology, you can expect to see exactly what you'll see. Left and right, I don't even know what it means anymore for the most part. It's so confusing. You know, this guy in El Paso espoused like pretty left-wing policy ideas, and you're going to see people say, no, he was really left-wing, no, he was really right-wing. I don't care. They're identitarians. That's what matters. They are driven by an ideology where they, like, the guy in El Paso, let me make it absolutely clear, referenced dirty race mixers. Yeah, he's talking about me. I understand that. He's talking about my family. I get it. These are not good people. But I have never experienced this kind of sentiment among mainstream conservatives. I've actually experienced it among mainstream left. Kirsten Gillibrand type people. White privileged elites who are telling me. So I'll tell you this, man. I don't think it's necessarily the fault. Well, you know what? There's nothing I can do. It's dominoes falling over. I try to condemn identitarianism across the board, but the left is embracing it. They are. Kirsten Gillibrand on that 2020 debate stage with that nightmarish ideology, telling people she's going to go to white suburban moms and explain their privilege to them. When you push this rhetoric, when the Democrats oust the top staff of the DCCC for being white, don't be surprised when you get your equal and opposite reaction. So I don't see a solution to this. All I know is it's going to get scary, and I just want to end by stressing this. It's coming into focus. What Reza Aslan said should be terrifying to all of us. Will we see people on the left call it out? I honestly think the answer is, for the most part, no. Of course there are people on the left who call it out. But in the mainstream, are we going to see John Oliver, Bill Maher? No. Well, Bill Maher maybe. Bill Maher's pretty all right, although he's got some kooky ideas and keeps calling for a recession, which, dude, chill. But in the mainstream left, they're going to play it safe and play to their base. So it's starting to look like a civil war.
Well, already, that was some interesting perspectives, and just to let everybody know, Jasmine got another call, so she had to go. Not sure if she'll be back again yet or not. Tim Pool seems rather confused about what exactly is causing all of this and how to stop it. He describes it as dominoes falling. He said many times, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the cause is. I don't know. It's crazy. It's nightmarish. He keeps, reaffirming that. to me, there seems to be some important points that people like Tim Pool just like don't want to look at. People like Tim Pool are not ready yet. The cognitive dissonance is still too much. They still don't want to go there. And I put it simply as the cause is that nihilism has been made trendy, and this isn't new. Like, this started to move in this direction like decades ago. It's been like this progressive, upswing, and it just, continues to build exponentially. Look at it this way: for people that are growing up in this society to where nihilism is increasingly trendy, you've got these people that are growing up in a society where the educational system doesn't give a fuck. Corporations don't give a fuck. Government doesn't give a fuck.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Brackle from Comcast. No matter what happens, we don't give a fuck about you. We don't give a fuck. We don't give a fuck because we don't have to. Bottom line, fuck you! We do not give a fuck. We don't give a fuck about you. Hey, America, go fuck yourselves.
And, the steady increase and rise in, political correctness and authoritarianism and, just all the way across the board, just perpetual clown world.
Bear in mind as you watch this, that it isn't a comedy sketch. This is real life.
Is this real life?
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Democratic Socialists of America Convention.
If we want to defeat capitalism, we are going to need a party that will organize working people to fight for the demands that we want and to win socialism. Thank you so much.
Quick point of privilege. Quick point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want to say, can we please keep the chatter to a minimum? I'm one of the people who's very, very prone to sensory overload. There's a lot of whispering and chatter going on. It's making it very difficult for me to focus. Please, can we just, I know we're all fresh and ready to go, but can we please just keep the chatter to a minimum? It's affecting my ability to focus. Thank you.
Thank you, comrade.
Sensory overload.
Yeah, because communist revolutions are notoriously peaceful and quiet. And what's this weird thing they're doing with their hands?
And to win socialism.
It's called jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
First used in early 2015 at a feminist NUS conference in the UK. It's a replacement for clapping, because clapping causes anxiety.
It is also triggering to my anxiety.
Yeah, these people are literally afraid of this. But they're totally going to lead a revolution to overthrow the entire global capitalist system.
Triggering to my anxiety. Quick point of privilege once again. Hi, James Jackson, Sacramento DSA, he, him. I have already asked people to be mindful of the chatter of their comrades who are sensitive to sensory overload, and that goes double for the heckling and the hissing. It is also triggering to my anxiety. Like, the be comradely isn't just for, like, let's keep things civil or whatever. It's so that people aren't going to get triggered and so that it doesn't affect their performance as a delegate, okay? Your need to express yourself is important, but your need to express yourself should not trump or
He said Trump!
Triggering to my anxiety. Sensory overload.
So please don't clap, shoot up these. We have a lot of disabled comrades, and a lot of those are invisible disabilities.
You mean like the disability of being unable to handle everyday noises without having a nervous breakdown? Yeah, that's not a disability.
Don't really talk to anybody. Don't talk to cops. Don't talk to MAGA assholes.
Don't talk to anyone with testosterone levels higher than an amoeba. You might have a panic attack.
Triggering to my anxiety.
Take a deep breath.
Trump.
We have quiet rooms that are available. There's a range of options of these, right? Please don't go into that space with anything that's like an aggressive scent.
You mean like the stench of the 90 million victims of communism?
An aggressive scent.
Point of privilege, I'm a Tourette's victim with BO and an irrational fear of jazz hands. Bigots.
We are safe and we are strong.
Until someone forgets to state their pronouns or whispers too loudly, then you go cry in the quiet room.
Triggering to my anxiety.
Jesus Christ, for someone who suffers from sensory overload, you sure do shout a lot.
Triggering to my anxiety.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes.
Please do not use gendered language
to address everyone.
Okay.
Oh my god, look, it's not. It can't be. Is it?
It is, ma'am.
And if you're wondering what triggered him,
Please do not use gendered language.
the sensory overload dude used the word guys.
Guys, first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want first of all, James Jackson, Sacramento, he, him. I just want guys.
Please do not use gendered language. It is, ma'am.
Guys!
Take a deep breath.
Quick point of personal privilege. How in the holy fuck do you even get through a normal day? How do you even manage to leave your house, operate in society, and get back without emotionally liquefying? How are you going to even host a convention when you spend the entire first day getting triggered by each other's words and mannerisms?
Triggering to my anxiety.
I've seen less neurotic people at a bipolar incels anonymous meetup.
What up, DSA?
Sensory overload.
Oh, we're almost there. Just but thank you.
Triggering to my anxiety.
There must be something in the water.
Soy.
Solidarity forever.
Listen, I know vegans find it hard to muster up energy, but I've seen more enthusiasm at a Joe Biden retirement home visit.
And I've loved kids jumping on my lap.
But Biden better buck up his ideas because these people are taking over the Democratic Party. These are the people Democrats increasingly have to pander to. 2020 really is gonna be an absolute shit show.
Triggering to my anxiety.
So if you've got somebody that is growing up in the state of nobody gives a fuck, none of these systems work, you know, they don't give a fuck, what is their incentive to give a fuck back in return? They have literally none. So they end up not giving a fuck either. And so imagine someone in this state, which a lot of people are, males, females, younger, older, white, black, every, you know, type of person you can think of. You know, they're in this society, and the weight of this apathy and this hopelessness is continuing to crush down on them. Is it really surprising that every now and again some of these people fucking snap? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, at least to me, that, you know, that would be the logical conclusion. The mind can only take, you know, so much of this abuse, so much of this desperateness, hopelessness, apathetic nihilism before, you know, the mind snaps. Now, I'm not saying that most people are going to end up being mass shooters. Like, no, that's only one expression of the mind snapping. There's, like, tons of other expressions of mental breakdown that, you know, do not involve mowing people down with a semi-automatic weapon. But, you know, it's just, it's not surprising. So the solution here, and, you know, maybe I'm being a bit too, you know, Pollyanna or what the fuck ever, but no, not really. It's actually kind of logical if you look at it. Be the change that you want to create. Be as your authentic self. Project the opposite attitude of what the mainstream and government and, you know, all these other entities, what society at large teaches you that you must be, you know. Do not join the circus. Do not join fucking clownworld. Be the opposite of clownworld, no matter what.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. "2020 is coming. It's a year I told you last week that would be difficult because it would expose duality. The dark and light would start to show itself more than ever before. It would be difficult because inappropriate things would start to show. Almost like the dirt would start coming out of the cracks, and some would be afraid, but others would realize that it had always been there. And you would see it in your politics more even than you see it now. You would see it worldwide in many countries who may very well lose their leaders yet again because of inappropriate actions that they used to do in the dark that they cannot do today.
Many times, documenting it, showing it, the evidence. This is why independent media is so important. This is why we're under attack. This is why Max is under attack. I could just keep going about this forever. But let's transition here because we got a lot of different issues to get into, and the kind of water issues, the water rights issues you've been telling me are absolutely shocking. Tell us, Max, unless you want to talk about other stuff that I just added to with Epstein, but let's try to transition here and what's happening with Australia and the larger issue of fresh water.
It's extremely bad, but I will just make one more comment on what you said before about the police not investigating Prince Andrew. People have to understand that the police in England and the legal system, the judges, the lawyers, anybody in any position of authority in the UK, when they take that position, they do not, when they take their oath of office, they do not swear to serve England, they do not swear to serve the Crown, they swear to serve Her Majesty. So they are not capable of launching an investigation into anybody who will eventually implicate the royal family because they're bound by their oath to serve Her Majesty. So how can they launch an investigation which will implicate the royal family? They can't. That's the thing. That's something I pointed out on a show recently, or on one of the reports I did regarding Epstein. I've actually put out 4 reports regarding Epstein. You can check my channel, The Crow House, on YouTube, and you can look at those reports. I talked about a decree that was enacted by the Queen of England, which was a decree from the Catholic Church, which was enacted by the Catholic Church in 1991, which she adopted for the Anglican Church in England in 2010. And it's a decree called Crimen Solicitationis, which is a decree which basically says that all pedophilia exposed within the church must be investigated by the church. It must be investigated internally. It's basically a decree to cover up pedophilia within the church, and to even punish anybody who speaks out about it, even the victims if they speak out about it. So by adopting that decree, Crimen Solicitationis, into the British religious system, the Queen is now in breach of her coronation oath. So if you're a police officer out there who believes you are bound by your oath not to investigate the royal family, well, now the Queen is in breach of her oath and really under British law must abdicate. So, you know, how bound by their oath should any police officer feel? I'd just like to point that out. I think it's an important thing. Getting onto Australia here, we are in dire straits in this country. We've run out of water. We're running out of water very quickly. All the creeks around here have stopped flowing. And these are all spring-fed creeks that don't stop flowing. They never stop. This country is in dire straits. The fires that are burning here are literally out of control. They are so huge, some of these fires, and they are burning like fires have never burned before. Some of the fireys are saying, you know, the rural fire service people that have gone and fought a lot of these fires are saying this is like a firestorm they've never seen. You know, the country is tinder dry, but there's something about the fires. They're burning much, much hotter and much faster and far more intense than they normally are. The water that we're facing, the problems with the water here is floodplain farming, floodplain harvesting, which is preventing the water from getting into the river systems, and a whole bunch of private dams that have been built by large agro companies like from Canada and China and other places that are basically stealing the water from the river systems and using it for large agricultural purposes in the northern reaches of Australia. It's not getting down to the people. This has all been done by design. This entire drought has been manufactured, and the loss of water is manufactured. And it says in our constitution that, you know, you cannot take water. You cannot, I think I've even got it here, the constitution. No, I haven't got it right here, but it says in the constitution that you cannot, you know, there is no state can legislate anything. There is no levy, there is no commerce, there is nothing that you can do to control the water, and yet the government is selling the water from this country to other countries now, creating this drought on purpose. And the fires that we've seen here, Luke, like the fires in California, and we're figuring out what's fueling these fires as well. You know, the geoengineering that we talk about, the naughty word you're not allowed to utter, chemtrails, you know, the spraying that goes on in the sky that so many people deny. You know, I don't know why they deny it. You look up, it's there, and they're saying it's jet exhaust. Well, you know, jets don't have exhausts like this, and contrails don't linger like this. And we've done tests on soil and tests on water, and we found unusual levels of substances, three main substances, which is aluminium, barium, and strontium, is what we're finding in soil samples and in water samples. This seems to be coming from the spraying in the skies. Now, it's really significant because a friend of mine, or someone on my video clip, on my last video clip that I posted, actually said that they had gone and Googled, they'd gone and checked and searched for the chemical compounds used to make sparklers. You know, sparklers that you get at fireworks, you know, the metal on a stick and you light them and they sparkle. The active compound in sparklers, there's certain things you can use, but couple of mandatory ingredients that you must have in sparklers are aluminium, and they also need a accelerant to work with the aluminium, and there are 4 accelerants named, and the 2 main ones you must have are strontium and barium. So this is basically the ingredients of sparklers. This is what's in the chemtrails. This is why the fires are burning so intensely. This is why they are spraying all of our countries. You know, when you look at the situation here in Australia, even the barometric radars, the barometers that we have, the weather radars all around the country, we've got 55 radars around this country. They each cover an area of around 200 miles in span, and yet they're really, really close together all around city areas. Why? Because they're pushing the storms away. They know they can push storms away. They know they can seed clouds. The weather here is being controlled, and people will not admit it. But they are using these radars to push the clouds away, to create high-pressure systems, to push all the weather away. They are spraying our countries with this compound, which is basically sparkler ingredient, and then they're just igniting fires. All you've got to do is throw a cigarette butt out the window in this sort of condition, and the fire that you get from it is outrageous. And that's what's happening to this country. But by removing all the water, the people don't realize the seriousness of this situation. You know, the towns are being removed of water, and without water, there can be no life. Now, when you look at the Deagle website and you look at all those figures they give you on the Deagle.com website, where it predicts the figures for 2017 and then in 2025, and we see major population reductions in all our countries. Australia is set to be reduced by population by around 12 to 15 million people between now and 2025. How do you think they're going to do that, folks? They're burning us out with these fires and these droughts, and it's all being done by design. They're controlling the weather, they're blocking the water from getting into the river systems, they're spraying the country with sparkler material, and they're calling it climate change, and people are going along with it. I also had a document that was released to me, which is a draft, a council planning draft for between 2017 and 2040. And they're talking about in the draft how they're going to be moving people out of high-risk areas and limiting construction in high-risk areas prone to fire and all this sort of stuff. Now, so they're moving people out. They're burning people out of the country. And what they're doing here as well, after the fires have gone through and these places have burnt down, the council's going through and they're chopping down the trees that are left. They're saying, oh, it's a fire hazard. We've got to clear the trees that are left. If the fire's gone through, how are the trees that are left a fire hazard? How's the forest ever going to grow back if you don't leave any trees there? That's what they're doing to this country, Luke, and people are not paying attention, and it's extremely serious. And I put out a video day before yesterday called Australia, Wake Up or Die. Please make this viral. I would ask you to please put a link to that video below this video on your channel, and please share this video. It's so important that the people wake up to what is happening here. Now, this is a big country and we're running out of water, and people just aren't going to see until it's too late. And it's virtually too late now, you know. And if people do not rally up and get out to the center of this country and start breaking open these dams that are holding this water back from the river system, a lot of people in this country are going to die. This is genocide, and it's being presented to the world as climate change, and it's not climate change. It's being done by the government, and it's so important, Luke. It's so important.
Yeah, Max, as you were talking, I was playing some of the videos that you showed me and some of the articles that you sent me as well. And I mean, the videos are astonishing, seeing the level of droughts. And I remember not so long ago seeing pictures and videos of these fires ravaging the main city center of Sydney. And I'm like, holy cow, these are extreme, massive fires. I never thought about the kind of chemical weather engineering. Now, as we know, China openly admits that they do weather modifications. Other countries totally ignore it, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that this, of course, happens. And then, of course, you have the climate change kind of argument that the solution is always taxing, regulating, and controlling people to stop climate change. And again, this kind of makes a lot of sense. And I thank you for putting all of this together. That video that you mentioned, of course, will be down below in the description. So definitely check out that video. Definitely go check out Max Egan. We've been on for a while. I know we could talk for like hours. We could talk for like 5 hours about this issue, but I think we got to the core of it. If not, if you want to say anything else, Max, feel free to interrupt. But specifically, just tell us, where can people find out more information about you and your videos?
You can find everything out about me at my website, thecrowhouse.com. I've got a YouTube channel called The Crow House as well. And it's extremely important what I'm saying here, folks. This is genocide, and this is what is coming to your countries as well. I mean, we're all facing water shortages in our countries. And when you start thinking about the active ingredients in what is going on in the spraying, how it is actually the ingredients of sparkler material, this is what is setting these fires off so much. I'm going to do another video today, and I'm going to show you where all these radars are and a little bit more information about this, include this sparkler information and a few things as well. But, you know, they're test running it now here in Australia, and they're destroying this country. They're burning it out. They're burning out the wildlife. They're burning out the people. And, you know, for all the grab bags and things that we think we can do to run off into the country and survive whatever's coming when the New World Order comes out, you know, if there's no water, then you can't survive. It's as simple as that. And that's how they're doing it. And that's what's going to be coming to your country as well. So it's important that people pay attention to this. I'm not fear-mongering. I'm not joking. This is an extremely serious issue. And a lot of people in Australia are going to lose their lives if this is not brought to a stop pretty soon and these people do not rise up and rally up and oust these criminals that are running this country into the ground. Thanks for having me on, Luke. And please do share this information with people, and we'll do it again, and I'll bring you an update as soon as I've got one.
Yeah, and what you're saying makes absolute sense, especially if you look at the very powerful, the supposed elites. A lot of them are buying up water rights. A lot of them are also very worried about water rights. And when you really look into what's... And
also, you know, all the stuff that we've been speculating over the chemtrails, is it genetic engineering? Is it this? Is it that? Well, now you see what they're actually doing. These are ingredients we've identified, what sparklers are made of, and the intensity of these fires, global warming, climate change. It's all manufactured. You can see how they're putting the theatre together and how they're selling it to the people. And we've got all the pieces of the puzzle we need now to stop it. So it's extremely important, Luke. It's extremely important. And again, thank you for having me on.
And it stops with you understanding what's happening and you getting an alternative point of view that you would never get on the mainstream media.
We told you that corporations would start showing inappropriate things, big ones, huge awards being given that may very well topple some inappropriate pharma. That is in store for 2020. It's about revelation, and at the same time you learn today that it is a cycle ending and beginning. It doesn't mean that there's going to be another war. Instead, what it means that you have the opportunity to come to this decision with a higher consciousness to make things different, and maybe, just maybe, the end of war. I said it before. Humans on the planet do not want to suffer or go through the horror of something called human nature. And now for the payoff, the big statement. Human nature, dear ones, is not static. You were told that it was only because that's all you've seen a certain way. The new alignment of the grid allows for higher consciousness, and that changes human nature. Human nature that is a new human does not automatically go to war. Did you hear that? That's the difference. And that's why I'm here.